All right, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Too Many Topics podcast.
A little bit on the fly today.
Yeah, very much on the fly. We have one of our comrades from Long Island came to visit us today.
That's
I don't know why he came all the way out here.
Long Island.
But Jared Garcia, owner-operator of Weichert Realtors Performance. What is it, Performance Group?
Homes.
Performance
Homes.
There you go, Scott.
PH.
Him and his brother. You want to give your brother a shout-out, or he doesn't get anything?
No, we'll give him a name drop, I guess. Joseph Garcia. We work together. We're partners.
Yep.
We share a space together on purpose. Yeah.
Which is bizarre.
It is a little bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I've been sharing space with my sister for a long time, so it's not that bizarre to me. But yeah,
It's nice.
sometimes don't get the family business.
We always say if we got separate offices, we'd have a big window in the middle that we could leave open.
And just scream at
Just
each
scream at each other or point and say whose fault it was.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's get started. We're gonna shoot the shit a little bit about real estate, see what's going on out there, opposed to out here. James LaCasto's with us too today.
A little silent partner
Yeah,
there.
he
Thank
doesn't
you for
wanna
having me back.
Say a word. Oh, thank you for having me back. Very formal here.
Nice.
All right.
Let's get in it.
Well, let's get started.
Real estate, music, tech, pop culture, sneakers, NFTs, comedy, whiskey, tequila. Woo! It's the Too Many Topics podcast, an absurd and hilarious take on, well, a lot of things. Here are your hosts, Scott and Tommy.
Sorry for cutting you off there, but I figured if we don't get started,
No,
we're just gonna keep
the
yapping.
intro will be the show.
That was it.
Always happens.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Follow us on everywhere you see
Goodbye.
our podcast. So where I interrupted you, what were you gonna say?
No, I said he's the big draw. He's the
Oh
big draw
yeah,
for the podcast.
if he's talking sports, because this guy has an innate ability to like regurgitate information that he hears on sports radio that he listens to all day long. That is just amazing.
I played sports all my life, and I like to think that I follow it, and I'll watch some games, but when there's sports talk, I get out of the room because I don't know what I'm talking about.
You veer off.
Yeah.
Anybody need a drink?
And this passionate, right? I mean, listen, people are passionate about everything that they talk about, but you listen to some of these talk shows, and these guys that are calling, they're like, long time caller, 77th time on the call today. What now, Tommy? And
Yeah.
they're all, they know them all on first name basis, and he starts screaming and yelling about this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy, and I sometimes wonder, like, do you have a job?
I always think the same thing.
No, they don't.
They're big newspaper
What do you do all day?
people. They read the newspaper
Yeah.
every day.
Well, then they're
Like, they try to
savants.
read, yeah,
I read. I don't retain the information like they do.
yeah,
But they listen all day, too.
all day.
They're on all day.
And it's
have
tough.
to be.
Like I started listening, when we were talking the other day, and what was it, 98.7 is ESPN now? This morning, these guys they were talking about college football, and like the guy was talking about the third quarter of this play happening in this game, and I'm like, what does he have, 17 televisions in his house? How does he know? Or did they just go somewhere and get this information?
It doesn't make sense in my head how they can recite all these plays and all these games and all these players, especially college, where you have that turnover every
Yeah.
year.
Well, I'm sure there's like a prep thing to it also. If you're a broadcaster on a show, ESPN, The Fan, like, and you have a slot from 10 to 2, say, I'm sure you're in there early in the morning and, getting prepared for the show and what happened in sports the night before, because you can't stay up all night long.
No.
Especially from these West Coast games.
They have these producers that are giving them the juicy stories.
Right, a lot of
Like,
information. And
Not college, but is it the Jet, the receiver, who was talking about just trade me the whole week? And then in the game against the Giants, he had 7 catches, 2 touchdowns.
yeah.
Is that the guy that was dating the guy's mother?
No, that was the quarterback.
Yeah, that's about where my
That's
football
where you stopped.
knowledge stopped.
Yeah.
Now, he's
Yeah.
now Scott's interested.
Yeah, that was the
Now
only
he's
part that I was
interested in
interested in. I saw a meme the other day. They had Tom Brady running down the block, and it was like Tom just realized that Giselle's mother's friends with you. But yeah, they got a lot of fun out of that. We had a lot of fun with it.
He was a hero. He was a hero in the locker room.
I'm sure he was.
You know?
I'm sure he was.
Oh, definitely.
Now what's going on with them over there?
He's hurt now.
Yeah, see what happens?
Yeah.
Karma came fucking flying through the door.
Yeah, he's out.
Yeah, you can't.
So what are they down to? Their third string?
Second.
They got Flacco now,
Flacco's
right?
back up.
Flacco's back.
Yeah.
Guys, what are you guys fans of?
I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Oh,
believe it or
wow.
not.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
so
follow.
we did a little introduction of them in the introduction.
Yeah.
Do we
Yeah, you want me to do it?
introduce them again?
You want me to?
Yeah, why not? I don't know if anybody caught it or...
Okay, well, maybe people didn't listen for the first couple of minutes. I think normally they turn us off
Yeah,
after a couple of minutes.
exactly. Yeah.
I think they got the beginning. They're
They
probably
know who
gone
he
by
is.
now.
They know who
But yeah, so Jared stopped in today to hang out with us. I like to think he came to hang out with us. He came to check out the podcast room. They're producing a podcast out in Long Island, out in L.A., I was going to say. Out in Long Island as well. I can't wait for you guys to get started. It's going to probably be, like everything else you do, a success. Now, with you and your brother that are doing that?
We're going to do that. It's kind of early stages, so we don't really know. So that's why we're here. Well, I'm here today to kind of...
Well, you guys have been producing videos, and you're making content already, right? Real estate related.
So one of the things I learned a long time ago, and I'm sure you guys know it as well, you just got to do it, right? And then you learn more on the job than you do preparing. And too many people in life just, get their ducks in a row, and they're never in a perfect row, in their opinion, so they never get things going. So, you just got to get it out there.
Right.
Yeah, we talk about that, I think, actually, what's his name? Kirk.
Yes.
Yeah, he used to talk about paralysis by analysis.
Paralysis by analysis.
Sometimes we just look at stuff and look at it and look at it and look at it.
And then it passes you by.
Until you freeze, right?
Do you guys have a name and a category of, are you going to stick to real estate topics?
Not necessarily. So, as you might know, my brother's the Farmingdale Chamber of Commerce president, Farmingdale, New York. So, we know a tremendous amount of business owners, restaurants, and me and Scott were actually talking earlier that, it's much better to kind of have topics that the average person in the community is interested in. Time will tell where we go.
What we're not doing.
No, it's to that point.
Yeah, you invited a guy from Long Island.
Well, people want to, know what's going on in the community, right? We just left a brand new pizzeria, right? Me and my daughter went for lunch.
Well, brand new for
Where was
that
it?
area.
Eltingville.
By you. It's your last name.
No, it's not his last name.
What am I last name? What are you talking about?
Oh, Lacastri.
Yeah, so they're a book.
How long you know me now? You don't even know my last name? Lacastri.
Unbelievable, right?
This is crazy. I'm gonna start calling him Smut instead of Smith.
Yeah, well, his soon-to-be wife has been out for the last 3 days.
Smut.
Speaking of pizzerias, what do you think? Do you think Long Island or Staten Island has more pizzerias? I think that's a pretty competitive contest right there.
Per square mile, we have you crushed.
I mean,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're a lot smaller than you, right? We have 107 as of last week.
In 103,
104.
Yeah.
We
107, just 103,
Yeah, we had 3 that closed down over the last month that were like old time places, 40 plus years. So we lost 3 of them, but 3 or 4 pop up every time you lose one. They're like gremlins. Like you put water on them and they duplicate.
I'm actually putting one up for sale too. That's been around 20 years shortly.
I would think right now the food business is tough for everybody. It's
Tough.
not the easiest.
well, it's crazy. I mean, I read an article from CNBC, put out an article a couple of days ago talking about inflation and food prices and all that stuff. They're up 28%. They said it's cheaper now for a family to go out to a restaurant than it is to go food shopping because of the cost of prices right now.
Wow.
So some of these restaurants are jammed.
They're not eating on Staten Island.
It's crazy. So
Yeah, listen, the cost of everything, whether it's
Outrageous.
except, and me and Tommy got into a little debate over this weekend, but I'm not quite sure how Arizona Iced Tea keeps doing it because they're still 99 cents. Saw them in the store yesterday.
I know. I thought
and they're big. Those cans, what are they? 18
Yeah.
ounces, 16
They've
ounces.
been 99 cents since 1995.
Yeah.
Like, how did that and beer has not went up in price?
Sugar is the same. Sugar hasn't went up.
I don't understand it.
It's weird because flour's up.
Everything is up except for Bud Light and now
Arizona.
Arizona Iced Tea is
Arizona
down.
Iced Teas.
We're gonna find all the deals.
You notice that beer
inflation-
hasn't really went up in the way that everything else has ran up 40%.
I haven't.
Because you don't drink beer. You guys.
I drink plenty of beer.
Oh, do you?
I always say beer don't count.
Yeah, beer's water.
True.
But your brother was telling me you guys are getting into bourbon.
So I've been in the bourbon for a couple of years now, but yeah, my brother just got a new interest in it, so that's kind of cool. Being that we do so much together, now we have another
Something
hobby.
else, yeah.
That's great.
So tell me a little bit about your place. So when did you guys start? Because you're similar to me and Tracy, family business. Were you all three? His dad's in mortgages, or he was for a very long time. You guys also worked with him in mortgages?
Yeah, so my father was a mortgage broker first, and the only reason he got his real estate brokerage was just to originate commercial mortgages. 2008 happened, right? The housing market took a little bit of a dive, and all of a sudden the pipeline just got dried up. So we put on our real estate hats. We started advertising bank-owned houses. We became HUD brokers, and as HUD brokers, you can do open houses and advertise any HUD home even if it's listed with another brokerage. And our phone started ringing, and kind of the only reason why we did that is just to get mortgages. We said, who's getting mortgages? Buyers. So let's go ahead and get those buyers. Naturally, every buyer that looked at that bank-owned house was not interested in that bank-owned house. They couldn't get conventional financing for it, so we upsold them. We said, for another $25,000, $50,000, you could get this house, and everything works.
Amazing.
There's no leaks, and the electric works.
Yeah.
Especially when you're breaking it down into a monthly payment, right? It's probably pennies for them.
And we used to post ads on Craigslist and literally put down your pity payment, break down the taxes, insurance, what their total payment was. And if the house had a bathroom on a separate floor, we would actually give them a potential rental price that they could get and what their net payment would be after the rental. So it looked very affordable.
Like a
Wow.
car payment.
Sure.
Yeah, because what do people shop with? They shop with monthly payments.
Monthly payment,
Of course,
sure.
everything's a monthly payment.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because the market's nothing like it was in '08, but all of a sudden I think real estate agents are starting to pay attention to buyers a little bit. They're giving buyers a little more attention, and I think there's something to be said about selling monthly payments. I think someone in your office had an awesome
Joe. Yeah, Joe has a property down in Manus Harbor that he put, own this house for, $18,000 out of your pocket, something like that. Because I
and
think,
a monthly payment or something.
yeah, well, I just don't think people realize like the magnitude of spending 3.5% on a down payment, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
to show them the number, what
Right.
it's going to be.
Right.
That's
sometimes,
what they need to see.
all right, you're buying a $500,000 house and it's costing you, $15,000-$16,000 out of pocket. Your rental, right? You're going to spend $2,500 on a rental if you're using a real estate company, and you got to give them a month, and you got to give a month for security, and then your first month you're out $7,500 right there, right? You save up for a few months, however long it takes you, borrow something, you're able to get into a house, and I think that's the key is being able to take these people that didn't think that they could own a house, and ultimately, put them into a home.
And you have a lot of these, second generation families where their parents didn't own homes. So if we could kind of hold their hand and tell them, there is a house out there for you, and you only need 3.5% down, and in some situations you can have a seller pay the closing costs. You're creating wealth and stability for that family. So it's a really cool thing, and
Yeah.
I think all agents now, they have to start paying attention to buyers, especially FHA buyers, because I think there's some opportunities for those buyers now.
So I was speaking to somebody, they were telling me years prior to me getting into the business, a lot of people now are just doing one type of seller's concession where they add that to the loan, right? I have a feeling now, right, sellers are going to throw that into the price of the house, closing costs. And so now they'll say, hey, listen, we'll close, I'll pay your closing costs. It's already rolled into the list price. So that's that give and take now.
I just think you just got to worry about the appraisal value, right? That's always going to be your issue.
Well, it's in the listing price. So your closing costs are going to be $30,000-$40,000. What he's saying is coming back. Appraisals are coming back like 5% lower.
Sure.
For the past, that's what appraisers are going out.
You've seen some short appraisals?
Yeah, they're going out. I think these companies and saying, listen, you got to appraise these.
They're trying to protect
5%.
themselves. Sure, from the downside.
So what he's saying is, hey, listen, you got a listing for $699. You know it's going to sell for $670 or something, but have that seller realize that listen, that $30,000, take it from the list price itself. Have that number worked in already,
right,
as a seller's concession instead of adding it, and then it would have to appraise.
Right. Oh, I got what you. Well.
So
there's going to be some opportunities where now you're
you're saying,
paying.
sellers need to be realistic at this point.
Well, that you're going to see, right?
There's not really that buyer out there. It's either foreign, coming to Staten Island anyway.
Do you guys already see the prices coming down to a degree where your homeowners aren't quite there yet? Are they still?
There's definitely been a pullback.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been a challenge, not only from, I feel like realtors right now are fighting a war on two fronts almost.
Yep.
You're dealing with the buyer who, we had a cross-country mortgage in here, a month ago? And they were talking about with the new interest rates that for every $100,000, it's $590,000, right, per month. So you borrow $400,000, look at $2,400. Then you got your taxes and your homeowner's insurance logged into that. Now you added what we were talking about previously with inflation. cost of food, cost of gas, everything that's going up. People are scared. People either A, can't afford it, or they're hesitant to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
You know what? Who knows where we're heading, what kind of direction we're heading in, you know, what this administration is going to do next. So they're kind of like lying in the weeds.
And media coverage ain't helping that.
No. And then you have the seller.
They're scaring them.
They are.
Media always scares.
Scared. And then you have the seller on the other hand who's not accepting the fact that this is not a year ago, rates are on 3%, and their house is not worth what the guy across the street got last year.
Yes.
Well,
That's
And
I
you
think-
gotta, you know, so you really, it's like a, you know, it's a hard place to be in right now. It's
Well,
definitely challenging.
I read an article the other day. It said 73% of homeowners that bought in the last year are unhappy. And, you know, you start to think about that from multiple fronts, especially being in this business as long as we have. You know, you say why? You know, is it purely a financial understanding of why you're not happy? And quite honestly, I don't believe that because, I don't know, you bought a home for your family how many years ago? Did you go on Zillow every single day or whatever this algorithm where it told you what your house was worth every single day? Or did you buy the house for your family to live in?
I bought the house, and I
Right.
shook the seller's hand, and we made a deal, and that was the end of it.
It's not like it's Bitcoin where I'm following this thing every hour to see what my investment is. But to your point, James, what I think people are unhappy about is they were happy buying the home, right? Their alternative was renting, so they had an alternative. They decided home ownership was right for them. I don't think they understood the economy and what would happen if things changed, right? Because so many people went into these homes over the last year. They probably paid what we call top dollar, right? Not by the skin of their teeth, but, you know, thinly got there. But they didn't anticipate their utilities to go up 40%. They didn't anticipate ham to be $16 a pound, right? They didn't anticipate gas to be $5 a gallon. So all those things are now ratcheting into their monthly bill, and that's where I feel the unhappiness is coming from. It's not the home ownership part.
I agree
It's a whole
100%.
package.
I think that's part of the problem. I think a lot of people, everybody talks about interest rates. Interest rates are up, interest rates are up. It's not just interest rates.
everything.
Because we were talking about previously, 6% still over time really is not that bad, right? We were talking about in the 80s, it was 15%. It's everything else. Food's up 28%. Gas is up. $5 on electric is up. Everything is up.
Everything is up.
So now I feel like inflation is a big problem contributing to a lot of it. It's not just the interest rates.
And somebody said, I don't even know who it is, so we don't have to get political, but inflation's the biggest tax there is. You
Oh,
know, so
absolutely.
Sure.
Everyone's feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way the government's going to get all this money back, right? I mean, they gave out trillions and trillions of dollars, and they don't think any way, shape, or form they're going to have to get it back.
I think some people did. I think some people had no intentions of it.
I wish Joe
ever
was out here.
changing.
Joe, I'm sure, has a good point, you know, a good view on these things as well. You steer away from that stuff, huh?
You know, it's funny because we're lucky enough to have, you know, me and my brother, who's my partner, so there's really no sense of what he's specializing in for me to go all in on that area expertise as well. So he's doing the chamber, he's doing RPAC with the Long Island Board of Realtors, and yeah, that's kind of his thing. So
Yeah. That makes sense. Tracy doesn't really get involved in any stuff on the association side or NISA for that matter or not. She likes to do her thing in the office, and it works well.
yeah, so I have to build out a podcast studio, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's
There's your lane.
that's your content creator.
It's on you.
So again, New York, we're Staten Island, he's Long Island, but I have a feeling it's two different markets, right? What are you guys seeing? Who's your buyer, and how are you attacking those sellers?
So it's interesting because we're certainly at a turning point, right? So, you know, you look at home prices, you're studying home prices all day, you're studying days on market all day, but a market 35, 40 days ago is not the market that we're in now, right? So we're really at a point where we need more data, so to speak. You know, even homes that are on the contract, you don't know what those homes sold for. Did they sell for 101% of the sales price or 90, right? That's a huge difference.
Sure.
And I guess you're probably in a similar situation where, in my opinion, at the middle of that turning point where we're going to learn what we're going to see. I, in my opinion, think we're going to have more of a flat market, right? We're not going to see any drastic appreciation. I don't think we're going to see any drastic depreciation either, which lends itself to maybe some opportunities for buyers to make those offers, right? There was always, and I think Staten Island was a similar market, there was that expectation last year that if you didn't come in way above asking,
Cash, 20%
Don't-
over,
yeah,
waiving inspection, waiving appraisal.
all that stuff, don't even bother making an offer.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Just go somewhere
Yeah,
else.
now these VA buyers, these FH buyers, they'll actually have a chance to be able to buy something. but then it comes down to monthly payment.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're somewhat insulated still based upon our proximity to the city. I think people still have to live here.
And the demand is
And the
unprecedented.
demand is still there.
Yeah.
So I do believe, like anything in life, if we were to buy real estate in China right now, I don't know why we would do that, but if we were to do that and we've never been there, we don't understand it, we'd probably find wherever their epicenter of their life is, which is New York. This microphone's going to kill me. And then you draw circles, right? And then you go, obviously the closest Manhattan is going to be super expensive. And then you have the outskirts, which is probably Brooklyn, Queens. Then you have a little bit further out, which is Long Island and Staten Island. So we're still within that, 1 hour drive to where people make their money. I think that's going to be beneficial for us.
The interesting thing, and I would love to hear the three of your opinions, is you have all these people that locked in on these ridiculously low interest rates. And I think a lot of these homeowners may not be in their perfect house, might be in a situation where they want to make a move. But they won't because they're afraid to leave a 3% interest rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see in the future what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. You think about it, people are like, I like it here, but I'm not happy. But I'm at 3%. The mortgage rates are 9 now, 8, whatever they're headed. We don't know.
I think it all comes down to where you're going, right? If you're moving town to town, maybe not, right? If it's a lateral move, maybe not. And I think the days of selling your semi and buying a center hall are over. I don't think it's going to happen the way it did because the equity isn't there for a short-term person. It's only there for someone who bought maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago. But if you're moving out of state and it's like a lifestyle change, that's where I see people not worried as much about the rate because I believe that when they're making that move, typically it's either an all-cash buy or it's a very low mortgage buy, right? They're coming out of here with a lot of equity in their home. They're going to this, next level in life and next phase, if you will. They're not buying credit heavy the way they are here with the 3%, the 5%, even the 20% down.
Yeah, it's an excellent point.
You haven't seen 3% down in a couple of years, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure if you go to the Floridas of the world and the Carolinas of the world, they don't see it at all. The man that's down there, I'm sure, we know how difficult it is to get a small down payment deal across the line. You can only imagine down there where everyone has cash.
Well, that's another thing, too. I mean, the secret's out, right, with these places?
Yeah, I think from that perspective, I think that interest rates are playing a part right now because you have a lot of FOMO out there, right? People that waited and waited and waited because they, for whatever reason, they were either going to get more money like everybody thought. They just didn't find where they were going because I think that's a lot of the problem, too, especially with retirees that are trying to get into these over 55 communities that just have waiting lists. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, what you thought you were going to get, you're not getting for your house, and the interest rates are preventing you from getting what you really wanted to get somewhere else as well. So that's I'm curious how that's going to pan out over the next 12 months, I would say.
I think a lot of our sellers, as far as the Long Island market, are the retirees, the estate sales. That's kind of the majority of what we're seeing come into the market, at least as far as new listings. I don't know if you've seen the same thing.
Yeah, I think that we've seen a slowdown in inventory. I would say that over the last year to date, our market in general is probably down 30%. So even though the inventory is a problem, you're starting to see houses come on the market, to your point, that are people that are trying to get out of here now. And to my point originally, I'm wondering if they feel like they missed the boat.
I'm definitely getting that. That's the point I was trying to make earlier with the seller there. I feel like they're throwing the house on the market now, like going, wait, wow, like interest rates are going up again. Let me sell now before they go up again. Now there's an influx of houses on the market. Definitely getting that from people.
Yeah, well, again, I think that an influx could be different, but right, because inventory is coming to the market doesn't necessarily mean it's good. Is sellable inventory coming to the market, right? I'm noticing now that people are still going to attach themselves to the highest price that they've heard for their house, and that's their number, right? If my neighbor got $880, I have to get $880. When the last sale was $795, it doesn't matter. I still got to get $880 because I'm attached to that.
Right. That's what I was talking about before. When the seller, we feel like you're fighting a war on two fronts with the buyer and the seller. Where the seller is like, well, the guy across the street got $750 last year. It's not last year.
I know, and that's
rates aren't 3% anymore.
And unfortunately, we're not through enough of of a turbulent period where people are getting it yet,
Yeah.
right?
And they'll recognize that the market changed. Yeah, I see the Newsday, and I know the market's changing, but my house is
Right. Did I show you this faucet that I put
Yeah.
in myself? I did that myself in the bathroom. So of course.
But that's what's happening. You talk to them, you try to explain to them what's going on, the price of the home, you run the comps, you show them on paper, black and white. This is what your house is worth right now. This is what, the rate you're at. This is what currently you can get for your home. And like, they don't want to believe it because they're not there yet. You have to do what they want. And then it takes them the first 2 weeks when you get no showings, no calls, nobody showing up to the open house. That has to make them realize, okay, now I have to lower the price.
Which is a tough spot for a realtor to be in, right?
Exactly.
Because there's a part of that person that also believes Jared's not doing his job. Right. And that's I always have a saying, I've been saying it since I'm 20 years old, that time is my only friend. Right. In the mortgage business, like Jared and his family, I grew up in that industry as well. And I used to tell people that I can compete with a large bank, the big names. I can compete with a small credit union. I can't compete with a liar. If somebody's going to tell you something and they're going to tell you there's no closing costs and then you know what, you're just going to have to find that on your own. And that's the problem. Time is what takes us to get to the answer. Mm-hmm. And to your point, that's a foolish way. Those people that are listening to this show that are looking to put their house on the market, your house is the most valuable in those first couple of weeks. Once that house sits on the market for a while, it's just human nature for people to think that there's a problem with the house. Why didn't it sell so fast? Why are they reducing the price now?
And after a few weeks, you're advertising to a much smaller buyer pool. It's that first time you
absolutely
get that big pizza pie of buyers, and time changes that.
Yeah, and price shops. I feel like price shops hurt you too.
Absolutely,
it definitely takes the wind out of your sails. Mm-hmm. Where people are like, "Oh, look, nobody wants this house." Now they're even dropping the price. It technically shouldn't have been priced at that price to begin with.
And that's, and I blame realtors. Let's be honest. We got to turn the mirror around on ourselves sometimes. And like you said earlier, you have to do, your words were, you have to do what they want, right? And it's true. We work for them. To a degree, that's true. However, we're supposed to be professionals, right? We're supposed to know our craft. I don't know anyone that would walk into a lawyer's office or walk into a doctor's office and question the process that professional was doing, mm-hmm. right? Yeah, I'm sure you've been in sports your whole life and playing, what do they call that? Competitive sports, when you bang into each other.
Is that what you call it?
I don't know. Whatever.
That's the only sports I play.
He used his body as a weapon. That's why,
Football, lacrosse, and wrestling.
Right. So it's not like he played tennis or golf. He played things where he had to run into people. I'm assuming you visited a few doctor's offices. Now, when God forbid, I don't know what your history is, but if you ever had a leg
ACL.
injury. Okay, so when you had your ACL done, did you tell him, well, I'm not quite sure that's the way to do it. Do it this way?
Nope. Not at all. No, you got to trust the people. And frankly, to your point, when you give that advice, if they don't trust you, maybe it's a bad fit, right?
Right.
And the best listing sometimes is the one you don't take.
I couldn't agree more. Sometimes no is an answer.
And it's a really good feeling for an agent to say, hey, this is my professional opinion. I think you can't ask that price and not close out your CO for your in-ground pool, your extension, and your rear dormer, right? But sometimes walking away is the right choice.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes realtors tell people what they want to hear opposed to what they need to hear. And that's, again, a fault of our industry that we're not confident enough. I don't know if that's the right word.
Well, there's enough of us for a seller to go shop for the agent
mm-hmm.
that tells them what they want to hear.
Well, that's the problem with this industry. There's too many of us, right? I had this talk yesterday with a guy came by my house. He works here. And we were talking, he was trying to get this listing, and the wife has a friend, the wife always has a friend. Yes. You have to be strong in these times, you have to be able to show people what your value is. People are no longer going to use your cousin's sister's brother because he's your cousin's sister's brother, and I don't want Thanksgiving to seem weird. They're going to have to go to a professional. When you needed help on your knee, you didn't open up the yellow pages, or see how old I am, I would call it the yellow pages. You didn't go on Google and just search for the first doctor to pop up. You, I'm sure, did extensive research on, different doctors in your area.
It's funny about that because I wound up going to the Jets Orthopedic for my first appointment. And me and my father basically said, yeah, let's book the surgery. And we could still get a couple of other opinions, but let's get on the calendar.
Your father's a Jet fan?
No, he's not really a sports guy.
Okay, I was going to say. They threw 2 tickets into opening day. That was sold.
Yeah, right. They said once my knees healed, I can run out with the mask on.
How's this knee? Feel mine. So it's like,
I can take it still?
Yeah.
Clean me up.
But it's good to get other opinions on a doctor's level, on a realtor level. It's not a bad thing to get other people's perspective.
No, absolutely not. If you treat it that way, right? Too many people, I think, do that. They just use of a friend. And unfortunately, you're forced at times, when things are good, things are good. It's easy to use your brother's good friend, right? But when things go bad, how do you treat your brother's friend? He's a good friend of yours too, right? He's been around your whole life hanging out. Do you call him up and treat him like a stranger and say, hey, you're dropping the ball here and blah, blah, blah? Or do you kind of walk on eggshells a little because you want to kind of preserve whatever relationship your brother has with him? And I think that's an issue that
what you just did, you put me in that situation thinking about some of those outcomes. Maybe that's what an agent has to do.
Absolutely.
When they're thinking, when they say, hey, I got a family friend.
Yeah.
Give them those situations and let them kind of walk in those shoes to see how it might play out. And they might choose to actually go with the professional and not the friend of the friend.
But sometimes, like to my point earlier, sometimes you just have to let them go and they'll come back, right? If it's right, they'll come back. And now it's kind of on your terms because they're apologetic. That's the problem too. And I'm sure you had this in mortgaging. James comes to me for a mortgage. I give him a rate. He goes to somebody else. They screw him. He can't call me back now because he feels like, oh, my God, he's going to, know I went to somebody else or he's not going to this. So now I get beat twice out of that deal. Not only do I get beat because you went to your friend, I get beat because you feel like you should come back to me because I was the only one that told you the truth,
right.
But you feel embarrassed.
The best is they go to the, let's just say Bank of Internet, right? They're getting a 2.25% rate and they get a decline. Then they come back and say, hey, can you do my loan? We say yes, but your rate's going to be X. Well, I was going to get 2.25% over at the Bank of Internet.
How'd that work out for you?
And you weren't getting it because you didn't qualify there.
Right. How'd it work out for you?
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing that they say that because you didn't. You probably deal with it a lot on the listing price. Well, that guy's listed for $900. You can ask anything for sale, right? You unfortunately, how you guys work is, and I think it's a flawed system because everything that you do is 90 days past, right? So it's not really, there's no real present value to things.
I was actually in a similar situation recently where I walked away from a listing because the guy wasn't even on this planet with the price that it was worth. And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time. And I tried explaining to him, and he was like, well, somebody else told me. I was like, okay, So I left it alone, and I just seen it expired recently.
Okay.
So, which I knew, and I called him. And I said, hey, how's it going? He's like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, and he admitted to me, he's like, you were right. I was like, listen, I was rooting for you. I was hoping that you were going to get the number that you wanted to get for your home. You were going to get lucky and somebody was going to come in and really like your house and give it to you. But I see it didn't happen. He was like, yeah, we're way off the mark. So I'm actually going to go meet with him on Friday. Oh, and I think he came back to reality a little bit.
That's an awesome story.
We had a nice conversation, and it was funny too because I could tell in his voice, like you said, he didn't want to call me back. Mm-hmm. He liked me. Me and him hit it off. I was in his house for 2 hours. We talked sports. We talked other things too, but he wasn't getting the price that I was coming in at where I thought his house should be listed at. And like you said, he didn't want to call me back.
And that's why I say, in the beginning, time is your only friend. Right?
Yeah.
That's what's going to, catapult you to a spot where the guy says, oh, wow, this is the only guy that was honest with me.
Yeah.
I'm sure Friday's meeting is going to be a lot easier than the last one.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it, actually. I'm looking forward to him going there. I want to see how his reaction to me when I first walk in. It's I know it's going to be. He was a great guy,
And it's nothing personal, right?
No,
it was just his choice.
Yeah.
One thing that, you had said earlier about pricing, and I find that realtors, for some reason, feel that that's their job to price houses. And it's really not, right? It's your job to show your client, your homeowner, where houses are selling in the area, right? But nobody can tell you what something is worth until somebody is willing to pay that amount of money for it. Right. So when we always get hung up on, oh, can you help me price this house? Can you help me? I don't know if that's our actual job, right? I believe we market homes for sale, right? We put eyeballs on them. We get people through them. We negotiate for the homeowner. We help them through the process of selling the home. But is it really our job to say this is what you're going to get for the house? And I think too many listing agents go in there thinking like, oh, if I screw up on the value, I'm not going to get the listing. Would you possibly, pay a little bit more money to live in a house next door to your mom?
I use that example all the time. That's funny you mentioned that.
Right?
I usually use the sister.
Me personally, no. I don't want to pay extra to live next to my family. But there are a lot of people out there that, hey, I'm brand new. I know my brother-in-law, who's a young guy, just got married. He's expecting his first child in about a month, not even. I'm sure he would find value to the fact that he could have family support around him, right? You're having a newborn, you know that that's not easy.
Of course.
You need support, opposed to, him moving, 90 miles away from everybody. So yes, he could realistically spend $5,000 or $10,000 more for a house. And I think that's what realtors have to do a better job at doing, is explaining to their clients that, we're here to facilitate the transaction for you. We're here to walk you through the pitfalls, and we're here to, get you across the line. Determining the value of a house, it's really based off of the data that you have. And unfortunately, like we said earlier, it's 90 days behind most times. But that's really what it comes down to. Unfortunately, there's so many other, not so many, right? But there's other players that have to look at this deal to make it go through, right? We obviously have to have an appraiser to come in. Yep. Now, just because Cindy decided she was going to spend $30,000 more to live next door to her mother, that doesn't necessarily mean the house is going to appraise.
Right.
And now, does the homeowner know that, right? Those are the things that I think is where the value is sitting down, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and explain to them that, look, I can get somebody in here to overpay for this house, but understand the pitfalls that are ahead of you if that happens, right? We sometimes celebrate these wins too early, not, just to fall apart in another 3 weeks. And I don't think a realtor should do that. I don't think a realtor should put a person in a position where for the next 3 weeks you're super happy. And then, what do you mean you never said nothing about an appraiser?
Right.
How does that work?
Now, even if we're going to see a relatively flat market where there's not much of a change, each deal could be very, very different with different issues. So having an experienced agent to be that project manager, an agent's job sort of starts all over again when you find that buyer, because now you got to navigate through all those other things to get it to the closing table.
Yeah.
And project manager is a good word. I like that, because if you treat it that way, where there's so many different things that you're going to facilitate through the transaction, you quite honestly are a project manager.
Right.
I think that more agents should look at it that way,
that's a good point.
And understand that you're not in it to put a sign in the ground. And unfortunately, for the last close to a decade, right? I mean, these prices have just been going up and up and up, and people unfortunately, our value has been coming down and down and down, right? You can't tell me that a person that makes $80,000 a year is willing to pay you $30,000 to stick a sign in their ground for 10 days.
And you bring up the family friends, right? If a home builder just got his contractor's license and hasn't built a home, would you hire that cousin to build you a home? Or if he hasn't had a job in 9 months, would you hire that contractor to do it just because it's cheap and it's a family friend?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Right. But I think it comes down to value, right? I think it comes down to how we positioned ourselves to be valued. I think that unfortunately there's too many. I don't know about your market. I can only speak to mine. There's a lot of part-timers in this game, right? Yeah. $260 and somewhat of a heartbeat, and you get licensed.
Yes.
Right.
So the level of entry into this business is very low, which I've always fought for. Even on the state level, we tried to make some changes. I think that's the big problem. The problem is that you have your select few that treat this as a career, and they want to walk into that house and provide value to a homeowner. And then you have the other agent that, has 2 other jobs. He's just really looking for this for 3 or 4 closings a year to take his family on a couple good vacations, and doesn't necessarily, I don't like to use the word care, but just pay attention to
there's no passion.
Right, the finer points of the transaction. And I don't know if they're, and this is most important, the continuing ed side of it. Like, I know you for a long time. Your brother too. You always wanted to learn more, want to learn more, right? You're always trying to hone your craft and get better. I'm not sure that there's a lot of people out there that do it that way. I would say probably a good 60%, 70% of our industry, our marketplace, doesn't have people that are actually every day, on some sort of real estate periodical trying to get better at what they do.
And some of these brokerages have, hundreds and hundreds of agents. So if you just call that main number, you might get the best agent in the entire world, but you also might get that brand new one that doesn't know what they're doing.
Right.
Or the one that sold one house a year that, like Scott said, has 2 other jobs, and he or she gets their business from, my cousin, my friend, a family friend, or which is an issue, comes up. But I think now,
they lowball it, right? They go in with a lower commission.
Yes, and that's another big issue coming in now. There's so many agents now because the market was so hot. Everybody came in at the same time. In fact, there's so many agents, and now the market has a pullback, and now these people are really pulling their pants down, doing it for nothing.
Absolutely.
It's insane.
Yeah. Do you know how many interviews I have with realtors, and they say to me, it's probably 1, 2, and 3 of their answer of, why did you get into real estate is, because a friend of mine told me it was easy.
Really?
Yeah, your friend told you it was easy. How many deals did your friend sell? It's like,
Or the TV shows.
well, that's the
yeah.
other thing that is a great point, right? We had a podcast a couple weeks back where I had Frank Rizzo on there, and he talked about that. He talked about how reality TV has changed the dynamics of what people think real estate really is about. He said, I said, "Why? You're telling me that Hollywood isn't real?" And he said, "No." He said, "You cannot do a full gut reno in 7 days." Right? And that's what people are accustomed to. They're watching these glitzy and glammy shows, and the kid's selling 2 or 3 houses. He's got 2 Ferraris, and that's Hollywood, and that's not real life. And unfortunately, that's being depicted out there. So that's where you're getting this rush. I'm sure your environment has seen a big influx of agents as well over the last 5 years, correct?
Huge.
We're up over 2,200 agents, in our small little marketplace, and you can't sell 6 or 7, thousand houses a year and have 2,500 agents.
No,
if you think about it, there's just not enough work. That's everybody getting 2.5 deals. I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone that could live on 2.5 deals.
No one's making a living on that, and I think we're going to see membership maybe go down.
It's
maybe
strange.
2023. I don't know.
Well, if they raise the membership a little bit, even just a little bit,
that's a good point.
Half of those memberships would probably fall off, right? If you have, like Scott said, the person that has 2 other jobs and does this, sells 1 or 2 houses a year, he'll sell, a family friend's house. Oh, my cousin's friend, you got it,
Right.
And you raise that rate, you raise that membership rate. I really don't do a lot of business. I'm not going to pay that. But where they are now, there's really no, all right, I'll pay, I'll sell a house, I'll make the money back.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and that's been another argument, right? You have, unfortunately, because the masses don't do the business, the masses have the vote, but so that's where the problem is, right? If you have 70% of the people that don't do business, they're going to vote to keep the membership low, right? Because they don't do enough business. And then if you would gauge that top 10%, they would tell you make it $5,000 a year.
Right. Absolutely.
Because now at least it'll be full of professionals.
Small pool, less competition.
And
more professional, like you said.
And I don't look at it from that way, because if I say that, right, no offense to you, but when someone says that kind of says less competition, me. How about the product that the client's going to get?
Well, I didn't mean it like that. You know what I mean?
That's kind of what you said.
Yeah, no, I did.
I'm only kidding.
But as far as like you said, it was not flooded.
100%.
Where everybody has a real estate license.
No, I'm breaking your chops.
Yeah, I know.
But the clients are the ones that will benefit.
Correct.
When you have less and less, people involved. Zillow tried it. Let's be honest. They tried it with their premier broker, right? They tried to say, hey, we're going to separate cream of the crop from everybody else. And for a while, they kind of did it. Unfortunately, you get greedy in life, and you try to sell the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, but say it's somewhat exclusive when it's not, and that's what gets people's bad taste in their mouth. But if there was a world where you had 1 or 2 listing companies, right, where these conglomerates out there that kind of ran all the listings, and then the rest was all buyers agents just running around, trying to get a piece of the pie, that's where a program like that really works well, because of the fact that they know, when you're signing up for that deal exactly what you can expect. To your point, I can get 5 different people come to my house to list my house, and 5 of them are completely different. Right? I mean, you're never going to get everyone to be McDonald's, right, and make one burger the same way every single time. But if you had a level, like a standard level of professionalism, I think that we would then gain back the value that we've lost over the years of being watered down from thousands and thousands of agents that don't do anything.
Right. It's even harder I don't know if you experience this with some of your agents. Some of these people are trying to communicate with some of these other agents, and they're just not responsive. It's very, very hard to get them on the phone sometimes, because they have another job, because they're doing something else. So there's no transparency there. It's, and it feels like it's like pulling teeth, and it does sometimes hinder the sale.
Of course it does.
Because it's like, all right, did they get back to you? No, I haven't heard from them in 2 days.
So now that looks like you look like a shit professional in my eyes.
Right.
And that's behind the scenes, that their client doesn't know that's
Oh,
happening.
absolutely, no way.
No, they don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I'm always going to play devil's advocate. Unfortunately, you have a select group of individuals that do that by design, right? I mean, you have people that and you're going to see, in my opinion, it'll get even worse, because as deals become less and less, people try to hold on to more and more, right? So now, if I don't call James back, and it's like what we talked about earlier with co-ops, when you know you put an application, they just don't do anything and hope you go away eventually. They don't deny you, they just don't do anything.
Right, yeah.
So that's kind of the same thing. Like if I don't answer James's calls for 3 days, maybe he moves on to another house and I can sell this house on my own. In turn, make double commission. So I think that, unfortunately, it could go two ways, right? It could be people that are definitely what you're saying, which I think is really the majority of it, is people that have other commitments, have other jobs, have 3 or 4 other jobs, and they forgot they got a real estate license in between, 2 city jobs and a landscaping business. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, the only person that's getting hurt is the client on both ends.
Yeah, absolutely. So learn the buyer.
Yep, and that I think erodes our value. At the end of the day, gives us the name that we have, because we all get painted with one brush, broad brush that we get painted with. It's just unfortunate that you have some bad actors.
Yeah.
Same thing out by you, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
not much different, even though...
We used to, there was some brokerages over the years, and you're showing a house in the middle of Long Island, and you have to go pick up a key in the heart of Queens. Clearly, they don't want us to show that house.
Exactly.
Right?
They invented a lockbox like a month and a half ago. Maybe they should start using that.
Yeah, right. With a $20 deposit, by the way, because if you don't return the key, they need that $20 to replace it.
Isn't that crazy? We have some agencies on Staten Island that do that as well, and I find it bizarre that a guy would drive all the way across the island to get the key to come back. And, it's got to be back by 8 o'clock tonight.
Sure, we'll do that. Yeah, no problem.
It's like, that to me, again, who are you hurting? I believe that you'll see that those types of individuals, companies, whatever you want to call them, will little by little be washed away, because consumers have choices today. Not just what we do. There's other companies out there that are revolutionizing the whole real estate process, right? You will have options. Whether those type of companies take market share or not, that's yet to be seen. But again, the consumer has options, and I think that's why a lot of these companies have manifested, is because when you have large margins, is what we have, right? You get paid a considerable amount of money to sell a house, and you're doing a shitty job of it. That's a recipe for somebody to come in and change you. Real estate has been pretty much stagnant for the last 50, 100 years. Like, we've always done things the way we do them, and, we don't need technology. We don't need this. We don't need that. I would be hard-pressed to know the number, but if you did a survey today on how many people would want the books to come back in MLS, you probably would have a significant amount of people who feel that that's a good idea, because now they're the gatekeeper of the information.
Yeah.
Right? We know our jobs have changed drastically from that perspective, because no longer are you the identifier of real estate. No longer are you the person that tells them what's on the market, right? Typically, I use the analogy of a doctor, right? When we were little, and the doctor came to your house with a bag, and he said, little Jared is sick, and he gave your parents what he has to take, and that's how he got better. That's what happened. Today, you have people going into the doctor's office with a list of medicine that their friends take and say, hey, I take this, I take that, I take this. Can you give me any of this stuff? Right. They feel great. I want to feel like they do. That's kind of what we do today, right? I feel that because of the fact that we're not the identifier of properties, that now I go to Jared with 7 MLS numbers and say, here, show me these properties. So right there, you get off to a start of not being in control of the transaction and not delivering that value. So you just have to find different ways, because of the fact that you're not that anymore. Mm-hmm. What are you, right? And we talked about it earlier on. You're the facilitator of this transaction. You're the decipher of the information that they're giving you, right? What does R5 mean? What does this mean? What is the tax? Is this yearly taxes, monthly taxes? What do these taxes cover? So you break down the information. What does asbestos tile mean? I think that's where realtors can find their value today.
Absolutely.
In just knowing a little bit more about stuff than you did years ago,
mm-hmm.
right? You didn't necessarily have to be a pseudo engineer, but today, you want to have some sort of knowledge of these things. Just pay attention, right? You're going 50, 100 engineer reports, you learn after a while. Just pay attention to what you see, and I think that's how, again, you could deliver some more value.
It's amazing. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, even little things like submitting an offer, right? You have all these kids, they're applying for colleges, right? And they're filling in their applications. And they're spending a lot of time. They're doing their essays. They're packaging this up in a beautiful package to give to the college to say, hey, pick me. But do these buyers have any idea how their real estate agents are submitting these offers? I think that's a great question that they should ask. And if you're a good agent that submits great offers, I think you should get into the details of exactly how you're going to paint that perfect picture.
Do you have an issue with doing third party offers? Not an issue. Do you guys practice it? I should say it's not.
We
not
do,
an issue.
and I think there's proper ways to write them, and it's up to a listing agent to say, hey, I can't include it. But
no. I'm sorry. What I mean by third party is like I'm able to present my offer live to the homeowner, like three-way, if you will, not third party.
We typically have a letter on file that they can't, and that's usually the request of the seller. So. Yeah, not typically.
Okay, so we do that. We have obviously, if you're the boss as the homeowner, right? So if you choose to only have everything go through your listing agent, then I can understand that. Very few people actually put a letter in the file to say that, but that's what you would have to do, to do it the right way. But we also utilize this three-way calling where, again, the listing agent is always going to take a defensive position, right? Well, you don't trust me. It has nothing to do with trust, right? It has to do with what you just said. Painting a picture, right? Storytelling. That's what life is about, right? Sometimes I know from my own experience of selling a house. When I sold my house a few years back, I sold it to a single woman with a kid. And I knew she was going to buy the house. The minute that the kid walked in the house, I saw how she went upstairs to my daughter's bedroom. My daughter was like 1 at the time, so it was all pink and everything. This girl could only have been 4 or 5. And she just loved the room, right? And you can just get, the body language of the people. Long story short, she got me for about $12,000 in stuff.
Okay.
I replaced the garage door. I replaced the 2 shower doors. I replaced the sliding, my closet. I was every day this lady was calling up me with more shit. And I'm like, there's a point in time where I could easily tell her no, and she probably would have went for it. But there was a part I grew up with my mother. She was single, my mother. I had a father, but I lived with my mom. I saw me in her. I saw my life, and I saw my mother struggling to, get a house for us and stuff like that. So this lady could do no wrong, right? So it's like, if somebody would paint that picture to me, I would be more likely to take that deal. Right? Opposed to, I got this one. This is 5% down. I'm not even sure if I spelled the guy's last name right. This one I think is 10% down, but I didn't speak to the mortgage guy yet. And guess what their own deal is? It's 10% down, but you remember they were the really nice couple that came in and loved the way that you did your this or your that, and all of a sudden she's painting a picture, he's painting a picture to that seller, and the seller's putting the pieces together, and that's the one that they take, right?
Especially the fact that a lot of these houses are sentimental to these people.
Absolutely. Everybody's house is.
Yeah, they raised their children there,
Absolutely.
whether
Memories.
they grew up there, whether, their father passed away and they got it in the estate sale from their parents, or whatever the case or the situation is. So when you're right, when you paint that picture, and the house is important, like they don't want just anybody living here. Oh, okay, they're a nice family. You know what? Right. I'd rather have them in there. This house is important to me. I grew up here.
But as a listing agent, it's a careful thing, because sometimes you don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because, fair housing.
Absolutely.
So as far as presenting that offer,
well, those are the letters, right? Did they allow you to do love letters anymore, or they don't allow you to do them?
I don't think there's any guidance in New York, but as a listing agent, we've had situations where basically, either our agent or another agent, where we're putting an offer in with the buyer, basically says, I'm not including that letter in the offer. I presented it, but that letter is not.
Yeah,
part of it.
I thought that they actually did pass something saying that you weren't allowed to give love letters anymore.
But I'll do.
What was that whole situation recently in Long Island? Wasn't there something that recently?
Oh, that was a few years ago. Actually, it's so funny. I always say recently too, right? Ever since
but
COVID.
it just recently came up again.
Oh, Long Island Divided.
Yeah.
The Newsday special.
Yeah, the Newsday special.
The Newsday special.
That was before COVID, right?
That was before COVID.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that was a big problem.
It was.
That was a huge problem. Listen, at the end of the day, it stems to your point earlier about having these large brokerages, right? They want this manager, or they want this owner to be liable, or to know what 1,000 agents are doing at one time. It's scary. Mm-hmm. It's scary, and you'll start to see a change in the dynamics of how real estate is done because of that. Does it pay for someone to go out and get 200 agents to work under me if I really don't know what the 200 agents are doing? And more importantly, listen, I love everybody that works here, and I believe that everybody does the right thing that works here. But do I know if somebody's going to have a bad day and, get cut off the wrong way and then get on the phone with a client and speak to them in a certain way? Or, do I know if somebody's falling hard on their luck? And am I supposed to know your personal situation like that, to know that you just lost $50,000 gambling last month and now you're going to do something in the real estate industry to try to recoup that money? And it could be, to our point earlier, not putting in an offer and trying to get your own offer through. You know, desperate times call for desperate measures. And I think that the liability that's put on brokers today, they should really make a determination what's worth it. Right? Is it worth it to have this huge amount of agents that are like squirrels trying to corral them? Or is it better to have a smaller group that at least you know what you have underneath you?
And it's two completely different business models. It's the gym memberships, right?
Yeah.
The big gym memberships want as many bodies as possible, paying subscriptions, and they don't care if they show up or not. And then you have some of these other ones like, I don't know, Orange Theory or CrossFit, where you're paying a lot more, but that they want you to come in, they want you to use the place.
Absolutely.
That's how they, that's how they get their reputation. Is to your point, they used to say an empty gym is a profitable gym,
Right?
Because the machines aren't being used, no wear and tear. You could barely have the lights on. And to that point, yes, it's a completely different business model. It's really, I guess, what fits your needs. Me personally, I've been doing this too long. I couldn't have a thing where I just had a corral of people and you ran out and did whatever you wanted to do. I wouldn't feel comfortable because I don't find value in myself then. Right. I enjoy being here every day. I enjoy doing, the little things to help people get better at what they do. And I'm sure you guys do too out there. You've been doing, you're about what, how many years now you're there? 5 years?
I think 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, we love getting the calls of the situations and giving opinions on how to handle it. That's fun. Yeah, helping agents and hey, you got a minute? I got this weird situation. I'm showing a houseboat tonight. I got that this morning. I'm showing a houseboat tonight. How do I do that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Bring floaties. That's what I would tell them. Make sure you have a life preserver.
Yeah. And
Especially
if the boats are rocking, don't come a knocking.
They have to drink on that thing all night.
Right, yeah. You, I don't know if I would say to you to go. Where were you last night? I would probably ask you before you go on that listing. But yeah, and again, to the family part, right? It's nice to have that arm of your brother. I have my sister that, it doesn't all fall on you, some of those decisions, or at least you have somebody to pick up the phone and say, hey, how do you look at this? Maybe look at this a little different.
Yeah, picking someone's brain sometimes is great.
And even Dad, having him there, right? I mean, he brings a different level of experience to you guys that I'm sure is great at times, and at times,
He's a phone call. He's never in the office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
You gotta call him to get
I
him.
gotcha. I didn't know that. I didn't know what his daily activities were.
I think his daily activities is ATV riding and boating.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Nice.
Hey, listen, he paid his dues, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
He used to tell me stories about him. He was an animal in the mortgage industry, so I'm sure he didn't do that all the time.
No. I remember being young, and every Tuesday and Thursday he had late night appointments, and he had like a booth at the Tri-County Flea Market. He had penny saver ads, and it was all about stop paying rent, buying's cheaper than renting, and he did all that 3.5% down FHA.
Sure. Wow, the penny saver, remember that?
Yeah, and he literally had a waiting room in his office. He sat in his desk, and his girl, receptionist, basically brought one in. He would pre-qualify them, send them to the real estate agent in the other room, and it was like a mill. It just went in a circle every Tuesday and Thursday.
And what was that, the 90s? 2000s?
Late 90s into 2000.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good system if you think about it.
Yeah, it's
You get
kind
the
of
mortgage guy and the real estate and sending them all in one thing.
And his office literally had two doors. So one, he went, the clients went in one door and then out the other where the real estate agent was.
Yeah, I got involved in the mortgage industry in 1995. It was the wild, wild west. I mean, all these new laws that they came out with not too long ago with Dodd-Frank and all that they were needed. Because back then, I mean, you would get 5 different rate sheets every day, and you get 50 different rate sheets depending on how many investors you're with. And basically, you charged whatever you wanted to based on what I thought James knew. If James was a savvy investor, he got a better rate. If you didn't, you didn't. And that's when back then it was the consumer needed to be aware of what was going on. So they cleaned up that act. But yeah, that mortgage industry was crazy back then. A lot of money, a lot of fun, but wasn't client centric the way today. I feel like it's a lot better where these banks have to basically give one person the same thing, right? They have
Which it is good, but just like all things, there's unintended consequences. So now that, a borrower that might not qualify and they have 3 cousins that are willing to co-sign, if you don't fit in that perfect cookie cutter box, that bank is probably not going to work with you.
Yep.
Right.
Where back in the day, people could charge a little extra and spend a little extra time. But those situations were far and few between. Usually it was people taking advantage of people.
Well, what happens eventually is path of least resistance, right? I remember real fast, and then we'll wrap up. Washington Mutual had a stated income program that if you had a 680 or better, they basically charged the lender, us, 25 basis points. So it wasn't 25 basis points to your rate. It was just 25 basis points to our profit, for the lack of a better word, which was not a lot compared to what they were paying you. So you basically, to take a $100 hit, you didn't have to take any documentation from anybody, right? So everyone went through the stated income program. They even though they didn't need to, because of the fact that they just made, unintended consequences, like you said. They just made people, it's so easy to go that way.
Right.
Today, I don't even know if they still have stated income, and if they do, you have to pay for it. It's definitely.
I think a lot of them, they're looking at bank statements. They actually want the money going in those statements.
Yeah, well, that's. Listen, back in the day, like I said, it was the wild, wild west. You had companies like Greenpoint Mortgage that were strictly an equity-based lender, that if you had 25% of anything, they gave you 75%.
Right.
Their application was a one-page, tell me your mother's maiden name, was as deep as you got with them. I don't think they took your social.
And look where it led us, right? 08.
Well, right. And I think the subprime market is what led to 08. At least Greenpoint, in my eyes, and that's why I feel like we leveled out a little here, is because people are going into houses with down payments, with strong credit, so the equity is there. We were doing, and Dad and you, exactly, 106% financing.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man, you fart and you're underwater on this house.
Absolutely.
And now people are just saying, wait a second, why am I paying this mortgage when
And they were all adjustables, right?
Well, even if they weren't adjustables, right? Even if they were fixed, you're still at a 106, right?
Right.
The only way that makes sense is in an increasing market. Even at a level market, you're just never going to get ahead.
No.
Especially with a 30-year mortgage, right? And unfortunately, too, it was just bad lending practices in terms of the client themselves. The client probably couldn't even afford that payment that you were giving them.
And they knew that.
And it was an adjustable. To your point on those coffee arms, those 1 month arms, they gave you 4 payments. They gave you an interest-only payment. They gave you a 30-year fixed payment and a 15-year fixed payment. And then, just in case things are bad, a negative amortization rate, which means that you're paying less than the minimum and stuff is getting tacked on the back. What do you think 90% of these people opted for when the bill came? When I wrote these loans, they all told me they were going to do 15-year and they were going to make extra payments. And, and then, 2 years later, the $275 I lent you is now $350.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, those... I
Shame
don't
on
know.
them, too.
Yeah, but shame on the lenders.
Yeah.
I mean, they made a tremendous amount of money making it easy for people to default on mortgages.
Yeah.
And that's why we had such the crash, because there was so many. I know Long Island was a mecca at one point. They have that area. I forget where. I worked for a company called American Home Mortgage, and they were all like on one strip, but it was just like
in Melville.
Is that what Melville? That's what it is. I mean, and every place is 30,000 square feet. I mean, they're not
Mortgage
like
Alley right
yeah,
there.
they're not
and
like
all the restaurants.
yeah,
on
they're
a
not
Saturday,
small
forget it.
place. They're big operations these places had, and they made a tremendous amount of money.
Speaking about Long Island, where are you considered are you by Islip?
Not too far. We're right on the Nassau-Suffolk border.
Okay, so yeah, my cousin, she's opened up her own place, food place. She was a chef. She was one of the best chefs in the Hamptons, and she's opened up her own spot, JoJo Cook Shop. Exactly where it is, I don't know. I went there. It's almost finished. It's opening up soon.
Is it Islip, or West Islip, East Islip?
They just live in Islip. If they're like 15 minutes from that, I'm not sure if it's Islip Central or I'm not 100% on that. But I'll get back to you, let you know where it is.
I gotta check it
out. The boat right there to go to Fire Island is right there.
Okay.
So
I think that might be East Islip.
Maybe it's East Islip.
Or West Islip, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
JoJo's Cook Shop.
Long Island's always been foreign to me.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Just this big mass of land that you just keep driving and you can't end.
It ends eventually.
Yeah, but you're
going
kind
to
of you're in the middle of the island.
I mean, I'm in the middle of the 2 counties, but Suffolk County's a lot larger, so.
Oh, okay. So you're not necessarily in the middle of the island, but
right.
okay, gotcha. Well, listen, man, it was definitely a pleasure
Yeah, it was
having
fun.
you here.
A lot of fun.
It was always a pleasure seeing you.
Yeah. No drinks, but that'll be next time.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Thanks for having.
Safe drive going home.
And maybe next time, we have Joe here too.
Yeah, sounds
and we'll
good.
have a little bit of a party. We'll have some drinks. Me and him had a couple of scotches the other night watching the Yankee Met game.
I can't wait till that comes out. Yeah,
Yeah, that
check
was
it out.
fun.
Yeah, it was good.
That was fun.
That scotch was good. That reserve.
Oh, you liked it?
I did like it. It was different.
That was
It was that one up
yeah,
there.
the cream bottle.
Nice.
It had like a chocolate taste to it.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah. That one's the Harmony collection.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks for listening to the Too Many Topics podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're there, leave us a rating and review. That helps spread the word about the show. Want more? Check out www.toomanytopics.com.